So, Jared, man, thanks for coming on again.
Absolutely, dude.
How was your Christmas? It's 28th or 28th of December now. How's your Christmas?
Yeah, holidays were good. I've been maintaining for a couple weeks since the post contest period. So I ate some food. I was here in Vegas. I didn't go home or anything. So I just kind of hung out here and didn't do much of anything really. Kind of worked a little bit and uh, ate a little
Where's
bit of food.
where's home for you?
My family lives in Missouri. Like everybody in my family lives in Missouri. So I wasn't feeling that cold weather and, and just traveling. We just got done with, let's see, I went out to Orlando a week early for nationals and then came back here. And then Mike's show was back in Florida in Boca Raton. Then we came back here, and then the Olympia got moved to Orlando, so we went to the Olympia in Orlando. So it was like
Oh, all right. Yeah.
solid month of just like back and forth, and I was like, yeah, I'm good.
To the whole month in Florida, basically.
Yeah, everything did
Yeah.
because Florida's the only thing that had restrictions, but didn't really have restrictions.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Pretty much all the shows everywhere else got cancelled. Um,
Yeah,
like I'm happy the Olympia went ahead.
yeah,
What did you think of the Olympia? Like,
awesome. I think they did a fantastic job judging the show. I think it went how it should have went. Even with like the risky, like you see some hardcore bodybuilding fans who just saw the live stream and they're like pissed about Hottie and Phil's placings. But when you saw it in person, it was a clear because they judged the day and night show. I don't know if you know that.
yeah,
For
yeah, yeah. Prejudging, right?
and Phil came in way off at the night show. Hottie came in fucking second place at the night show, if you ask me. But he was off in prejudging, so Phil edged him out because he was like a point ahead of him based on prejudging versus finals.
Yeah, and I think Hadi probably just, I don't know, he probably came in a bit too late. He flew in probably a bit too late, like probably holding
Potentially,
water and stuff.
yeah, potentially.
Um,
Or they just didn't nail the peak
yeah,
at the right time.
I
He
think
was
everybody
looking.
was.
I got to see all these guys like posing in the gyms around there and shit, and he was looking absolutely crazy at like 2 or 3 days out when he was in the Iron Religion gym out there. It was wild to see in person.
Yeah, I think like nobody expected Rami to win. I thought Phil would do it if he had got something his like midsection sorted out, but it seemed like
Yeah,
he's a bit off still from his surgery or whatever. But it's just not the same. It's like the same with Ronnie when he got older. His midsection just kind of started to change shape
for
a little
sure.
bit.
Yeah, I'd like to see Phil hit a more open styled front double now since his abs aren't that great anymore.
Mm,
Probably would have helped him a little bit. He still crunches down on his abs, even though his
yeah.
obliques and everything are kind of shot. Um, I think he would hit it like fixes his posing as he ages. I think Dexter ended up doing that at some point in his career. Like you just gotta with physique changes comes changes in your posing. You gotta hide your weaknesses and show your
Yeah.
strengths. A lot of people just don't take that into consideration. But
And
I think they judged it awesome. It was great, good time,
and what do you think about the classic?
awesome. Chris blew everyone out of the fucking water. It was insane. Seeing it in person, just the finals even was just like wow. I'm so freaking happy for Terrence. Terrence is a great dude. Very evidence based himself.
Mm.
Coaches a lot of people, and has chatted with me a few times. And dude, just to see people like that, climbing the ranks, just brings me freaking joy, man. I love it.
Yeah, yeah, he's got a real classic look.
Oh, it's
Um,
beautiful. Yeah.
Either he's really short or
Oh yeah.
Chris is
Yeah,
really
he's like
tall. One of the
five.
other.
He's like 5'5" or something.
Oh, okay.
And then
Yeah.
Chris got heighted in at 6'1.5". He won his pro card, I believe, at 6 foot to 6'1". So heights at these shows aren't exactly always
Yeah.
completely accurate.
And then Sean Claridia won the
Yeah,
212, which is pretty cool because he was a natural pro right back in the day as
yeah,
well. It's
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of he
Exactly.
kind of
Way deserving too, man. He looked
yeah
gnarly, and he's like the lightest guy.
yeah he's like 172 or something like that. He's got like
Yeah,
a lot
I'm
of.
unsure this time. I know he's been competing at the Olympia in that range in the past. I think he gained a little bit of weight this time. So maybe 180, 185 on stage or something. I haven't looked that up, but
Yeah, I
whatever.
think I think I saw in the 170s anyway, but I don't think he can really add too much more mass. He's just really short, so like I don't know how he would add. He could. I don't know how he could ever get to the top end of that class. It'd just almost be impossible.
Yeah, I mean, if he does, it's going to be something crazy to look at. I know that.
Yeah.
It's just,
Anyway, man, congrats to you. You've stepped into the pro ranks in the IFBB. How does that feel?
yeah, man, it's really cool. Thank you.
And were you expecting to do well? I know I followed some of your shows. You did open, right? And I think you came second. Some guy who's a lot bigger, but I thought you should have deserved that win. I don't know if that was the North Americans or nationals or what it was.
The first show was a warm-up show that I decided on a week out because we had uh, in the past the issue was the peaking process. So I got lean, like Arnold Classic. I got lean, striated glutes, looked really good. And then the day of the show, probably I just came in off. Same for Junior USA's. I tried, heavy carbing up, reintroducing water, reintroducing sodium, and after a sauna to make weight, you the recompartmentalization when you're using farm is just really fucking. You don't even know what's going to happen. So I just, and that's why people use like Lasix and diuretics and things like that, which I haven't had to use. But, we just didn't know how to modify the variables to make sure that I could come in on stage just perfect. And, I took some time just kind of looking things up and shit testing against my own knowledge on physiology and things like that. And I was like, if I'm going to do nationals and I actually want to do well, I probably need to test this peak at some point. So 2 weeks out, Mike signed up for the show. He unfortunately got sick and couldn't do it. And I was like, that's not a bad time for me to test the peak. And then it would have been cool for Mike to win super heavy and then me to win heavy and then like do an overall, but wouldn't happen anyway, as you see. But so that show was a local Vegas show, and then 2 weeks later was nationals. So the peak that we practiced at the Steve Carr worked fantastically, and I just had to basically go into nationals and do the same thing.
Yeah, and that show you competed the local show was that you competed in open bodybuilding, not classic, was it?
I did open and classic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw the open. The guy who beat you. I don't know. I actually don't know how he beat you. He was like bigger at some shots, but he was
He was
like
huge.
8 weeks
Yeah, he
out.
was huge. I don't want to talk too much shit, but there are local politics. I was very happy
Yeah,
with how judging went at
yeah,
nationals. It seems that there's a lot less of that in the national judging panel. But you have local shows and people have their
yeah.
favorites. I saw a lot of that shit in natural bodybuilding too, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of like Boca Raton, it kind of reminds me of some of the guys who compete with like Jason Genova. Like they're like 25% body fat. Do you know that guy?
I've heard of them.
Yeah, he's like Aaron Singerman and
Yeah,
PJ Pro. Yeah, they kind of took this guy Jason Genova. He used to be like a YouTube celebrity, but he would always like compete at like 30% body fat. It was pretty funny. I think he got like taken down off YouTube or whatever. But so what's the goal then with you for the pro card? I know that when you're, I'm not sure in natural organizations, but you can in IFBB, you can cross over, right? So is your goal to try and compete
I think you can in
classes?
natural too. I
All
think
right.
maybe the IPE, maybe not in WNBF.
Yeah. There's no classic physique, so it's like not many people do men's physique to bodybuilding.
Yeah, so the IPE has classic physique in
All right.
bodybuilding.
Okay. So is your goal to compete in classic or is it to go to open? I know that you mentioned somewhere before you want to do open.
Yeah, I have like a bunch of like philosophical reasons for doing the whole IFBB thing, and then I have a bunch of like sub goals that I would like to accomplish for myself, just to kind of draw a little more attention. Because the more attention, the more it fulfills the more philosophical goals of my journey into this side of things. Sub goals would be like making it to the Olympia stage in classic, and then moving to the open, and also making it to the Olympia stage. Placing as well as I can in both. So I'm giving myself a year, maybe 2 years of competing in classic physique to see if I can't make my way to the Olympia stage, and then be probably the only or one of the only guys who goes from classic to open bodybuilding, because then that kind of draws more attention to the bodybuilding. You have classic
Yeah.
guys moving up, because a lot of the open guys move down because they're just
Yeah.
tired of the burden of everything that comes with being that freaking large, including lots of farm.
Yeah.
So a lot of those guys get tired of it and they move down to classic. And then I don't see many guys or any. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Stanimal, what's his name? That's Stanimal's his IG handle.
Yeah.
He's moving up to the open. I know that.
Yeah.
But
Regan Grimes moved down and then moved back up.
yeah,
I'm not really
Regan was
sure.
open already, and then he moved to
Yeah.
classic, and then because
He
again,
felt
that
like
was
he
a
was too big, right? He went to like Kuwait, and then he was, I don't know if he, for health reasons or whatever. He's
I'm gonna go
young.
ahead and I will assume that it was the burden. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not sure what those like, the sheiks or whatever. They just want to see people get massive, you know? I
Yeah,
don't know if
it's
they really
pretty
care too much.
fucking crazy out there, man. They're adding size to people. That's for sure.
Yeah. The anabolic chickens. Um, so, yeah. So, I mean, that would be pretty cool. I think
Yeah.
there's been one other natural pro as well that competed in classic, or maybe two. Panix Pierre, have you heard of that guy? I'm not sure if he became a pro in classic, but maybe he just competed at the nationals. But Cleveland Thomas, have you heard of that guy before? He was
Jadavian?
Cleveland Thomas. He
Cleveland
was
Thomas. Oh, I was like,
yeah,
who? Yeah.
yeah,
Cleveland. I heard Cleveland. Yeah.
yeah. He was like the, I think, WMBF World Champion
Hmm?
back in 15 or 14. But he didn't do too. He went to the Olympia stage. Of course, there's a lot of credit to him, but I don't think he did that well. Maybe he came like outside top 10 or something like that. But for those listening, you're a natural pro, right? First, so you
Hmm.
didn't just. I think a lot of time people just think like you guys in the Olympia stage or whatever, they just take a lot of drugs and that's why they're huge.
For sure,
But
man. Yeah, a
for
lot of
you,
people
right?
do. Yeah. So I actually know a few others that have taken a similar route to this as well. A lot of men's physique guys do this, and then actually do fairly well. I had a client, uh, Arya, who had done the Olympia as a natural, and then got him in contact with
Well,
Broderick, and he's competing in Olympia, moving up and up and up. And these guys train 10, 15, 20 years naturally, and then, decide it's time for the next step for themselves. Um, as far as my journey in itself, it was 10 years of natural training. I started competing 3 years into that, I think. So 7 years of natural bodybuilding. I started in like men's physique, won my first show ever, and I was like, oh, there's something here. And then did a few bodybuilding shows, kept getting like first place in my class. I'd lose the overall, second place in my class. So it was super close to a pro card. And I was like, I think it's a good idea to, one, train like this for a while and really love the process and stop competing for just like a couple of years before I did another show. And love bodybuilding. And then get a little older, a little more wise, and make sure that I'm making the right decisions. And potentially in the future, I'll move to the enhanced side of things. So that's what I did. And I turned pro in, 2017. Or maybe it was 16, and then competed in 2016. Competed in 2017 in a couple pro shows, won a pro show. And then I was like, we can continue this, and I can gun for a world title at some point, or I can start this journey into the next thing. So I made a decision to move over, so that way I could start helping to bring science, alongside of really intelligent people. Like I said, like Terrence is a really good guy, and John Meadows has been doing this for a while, and Ben Pekulski's been doing it to the best of his ability for a while. And there are a lot of guys who at least taught science. They kind of speak onto it, regardless of how much they know. At least they're saying these things. It's kind of like you'll hear in the realm a farm, people will say like less is more. That's awesome. I love that they say that. A lot of them don't actually do that, but I love that they say it. It's cool. So, just helping to bring science into this side is really the main goal of all this. Like I said earlier, philosophical underpinnings of this entire journey for me is just making sure that I can do this in what seems to be the most optimal manner, including slow increases in pharmacology and slow increases in whatever, and slowly implementing new farm, whatever it may be, dieting, training, because we already have the sports science thing integrated into our training and dieting, which we've always done. And now it's just kind of similar thing for that side. So bring that over, and hopefully people start to value that more and more. They're already doing so, it seems, which is really fucking awesome. I've talked to a lot of people backstage at national shows, and they're like, yeah, we know who RP is, or we know who this is. Like, we followed 3DMJ for a long time before we started our journey, and like, I'm just like, damn, this is fucking awesome. So like, because this stuff's been in the works for a long time. So to, hopefully be a pioneer once I make it to the Olympia stage as an open bodybuilder, which is the long-term goal, just be a pioneer of, truly bringing that scientific thought process and logical thinking behind every aspect of this to the stage. And people seeing that is going to help a lot of people. I think it's going to help mostly younger men who, like myself, contemplated the role of anabolics in hypertrophy for a very long time before I ever started. It's just that unfortunately some of those run into that one guru at the gym who's like, yeah, take it.
Boston Lloyd.
Yeah. Shit like that. So, like I said, the whole philosophical underpinnings of all this is just keeping people safer longer and making sure that they outgrow the immature stage of, there's that very immature stage that we all get caught in. It's about like 1 to 2 years into training when just doing fuck all doesn't work anymore, and it's time to actually think. And you're not gaining muscle like you gained that first year, that second year, and you're like, fuck, shit's not working anymore. This is as much as I can gain naturally. But there are people out there who thought really hard, and they're great coaches, like 3DMJ coaches, and like you and Steve Hall and like all these other great people who are very evidence-based, who are like, look, you can still build a lot of muscle each year naturally if you just actually pay attention to these variables. Like I said, unfortunately, that doesn't happen to everybody. And instead they see this guru at the gym, and he's like, yeah, your gains are slowing down. Here you go. Here's the needle. And potentially we can stop some of that. You know what I mean?
So like, I remember you talking about this goal to me in person at the Mayhem in 2019. You mentioned that to me, which is pretty cool that you've now started to fulfill that first. I know that like the pro card, like, it doesn't change your knowledge, but it gives you that like gate opener. It gives you that like almost more respect and notoriety within the enhanced industry. So for you, what do you think? Like, what's your role going to be? Obviously, in the US, right, there's legal ramifications and there's stuff that you can and can't say. So is it really about the pharmacology stuff that you're trying to educate people on? Because it's hard. Not that I'm really looking for the information, but it's hard to get that information.
There are other people I can send people to. I don't intend on being a guru. I don't intend on talking in depth on that kind of stuff. It's not in my realm. I would send them to people. I know Brado Chavez is amazing. There are some other people. I just really want to bring sports science. It's kind of like we all have been doing for the natural bodybuilding, powerlifting. Just bringing sports science and, properly periodized training and dieting into enhanced bodybuilding, which would be really cool. And then again, the main goal of just helping people think logically, telling them to wait, and making sure they get past that stage of, well, I want it all now, and then maturing a little bit, and then making a decision for themselves because they don't take shit like what you just said into consideration.
Yeah. So like, why do you think that in the assisted side that it's the sports science and more in depth nutrition, you know, or scientific nutrition information hasn't kind of been at par with the natural bodybuilding? Do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. It's the same reason that it's not up to par with like natural bodybuilding and powerlifting. Like powerlifters have been using RPE forever. They've been periodizing forever. Boris Shako has been around forever.
True.
So that shit's been around. It just hasn't been around, first of all. Second of all, this is more of a observation. It could be correct. It could not be correct. But I think that I see guys who have really good genetics are the ones who tend to pursue bodybuilding at its highest level for the most part. When people see themselves putting on 10 pounds, 5 pounds, 8 pounds of muscle tissue per year for the first couple of years of training, and they're like, holy shit, that only happens for people who have pretty good genetics. And whenever those guys, you know, see that they're making progress, we can get egos, and we can, because I have one too. We can get egos, and we can think that we actually know what we're doing, and we don't need the advice of others. And unfortunately, that ego sticks around long enough that sometimes these guys, you know, they don't want to take any advice, and they think everything they're doing is biblical, and it's the words, the gospel, and then they go to the enhanced route, and they're going to continue making progress, because no matter what you fuck up in training, if you're just going hard and you get on anabolics, you're going to make progress. So then they make another 10 pounds of muscle gain per year when they start anabolics, and they think, I still know what I'm doing. And then that continues, the cycle continues and continues. And because that, you know, that's 5 years of you doing your own thing, and you're getting all this progress, you're doing well in bodybuilding stages. So it's like, you know, sometimes the ego gets in the way, and they think, I know what I'm doing. And they hear some, you know, undergraduate student who's a really logical thinker, and he really knows a lot of stuff, but he's not jacked because he doesn't have the greatest genetics, says like, hey, I see that you do this. Don't you think this is a little better? And they just kind of like, fuck off. Like, that's the mentality. Like, I know what I'm doing. Dorian did it. Ronnie did it. And even then, those are just like bullshit examples, because half the time they didn't actually do what they said they're doing. And it's like, I think that type of mentality is more than likely a big contribution to why people tend to want to shit on science. It's like an anti-science revolution in the enhanced side of things. Like I said, just great genetics, building a lot of tissue, doing well in bodybuilding stages, start implementing pharmacology into your regimen. You keep making progress. It's not optimal progress, and you're making progress despite what you're doing, but you're making it. So why fix what isn't broken is what, you know, is taught around.
I think that the guys who have like maybe, you know, subpar or just, you know, below the best genetics, they need to focus a bit more on being detailed or attention to detail. Yeah, so it goes hand in hand with the people who aren't.
Imagine when the guys with great genetics focus on the details.
Yeah, I was just thinking that, like, I wonder what like the training and the nutrition regimes are of the top 5 in the Olympia classes are. I know that Terence Ruffin has been coached by, I think, like you said, what's his name, the hyper Joe Bennett, and
Joe's a smart guy.
Yeah, and the John Meadows as well. So they're pretty science based. But I'm not sure about, like, you know, Rami or I'm not sure how scientific based, you know, what's his name?
It's as scientific based as it needs to be. Like, when you tell somebody, here are your meals, which honestly I disagree with. It's technically not something you should be doing. But when you say, you know, have a full cup of rice and 8 ounces of chicken with this meal with like a handful of broccoli, and you say, okay, we'll do that 6 times a day, and you notice they're not losing weight or they're not doing whatever, and you just add, take away, blah, blah, blah. Half the time these gurus don't even know what the hell the macros are. Like, drink.
I
So
remember
it's like you could look at
uh,
it, big picture, aerial view, and think, oh, that's not bad. That's about 350 grams of carbs, 250 grams of protein, and like 60 grams of fat. They might not even know that. And big
mm,
picture, it's like, is that going to get that guy who weighs 250 pounds? Probably. That's probably a good diet for him. And even though they don't know that, again, it's just
it works.
something that is occurring, and although there's not a name for it for them, or there's not a real logical explanation to why they're doing it, they're doing it. And sometimes they haphazardly do it correctly, which is cool. But it's like, again, progress despite what you're knowing and what you're doing, and progress because it just is good enough for that person.
Yeah. I
Well,
remember when I used to watch when Juan Morel first became pro, probably about 8 years ago. He would just like eat like once a week. He would just eat as much shit as he could, like burgers,
mhm.
cookies, on his like Olympia prep or whatever pro stage he was going
Wow.
to, which is insane to think. Like, but for you, what have you noticed then personally? I know there's not a whole lot of like research into enhanced bodybuilding for ethical reasons and legal reasons. What have you noticed difference like between your training or your nutrition or like the peak week, like you said, between when you used to compete as a natural and now that you're on the other side?
It's actually kind of because people expect like volume to go up like a fucking shit ton, but the volume goes up a little bit, but the loads at which I can handle are substantially higher as well. So it's like I've had to back off on really heavy compound shit. Like you don't see me high bar back squat very often, and if I do, it's after a bunch of other quad work. You don't see me do deadlifts very often, probably ever. I do straight leg deadlifts for hamstring growth. Like deadlifts and rack pulls and shit like that are absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand why anyone does them. Terrible SFR. Um, So outside of removing some of those bigger, really systemically fatiguing lifts, um, volume's gone up a little bit, tolerated volume a little bit more, but at the same rate, it's like on average pretty comparable to when I was doing natural bodybuilding because the loads are just higher.
Mm.
And the stronger and bigger you get, uh, volume might actually come, like the total set volume might come down a little bit because you're using such high loads, even on really great SFR movements. The loads are just so high, they're causing a little bit more fatigue.
Yeah. So you noticed that you had like a disproportionate increase of your strength to your recovery. So your recovery didn't increase as much as your strength capability, like on squats or deadlifts.
Oh, for sure. And that's how most guys run into issues. They get hurt. Uh, you'll see some gnarly pec tears and shit because guys realize, oh, I can press 4 plates now. And then they're still doing it with their garbage technique. And then, they're trying to max out the next week to go to 425. And, their range of motion was like stopping above their chest. But once they get to that point where they were stopping, the fibers beyond that just aren't used to the tension and they can't get the rep. So it like falls to the rest of their chest. So it goes from here to here and their pec just snaps because their tendons and everything, they're not recovering at the same rate as their muscles were recovering. And there are underlying issues there that you can't see or feel. And the tendon, like a snap is like one rep away, especially if it's already frailed.
Do you think that's why like we see a lot of like massive IFBB pros with like with issues as they get older? Like for example, Ronnie, the guy can't walk
Oh
anymore,
yeah.
but he
Oh
squat
yeah.
and he deadlifted. Do you think
Yeah.
that's
No, I think that shit was completely unnecessary. And even in his documentary, I think there were a couple of guys on there who were saying the same thing. And they're right. It was unnecessary. And I think even Ronnie knows that, but he was just like, I would have done it all again. Like he just enjoyed it. And I
yeah
think that was a big part of why he was so successful. He enjoyed the hell out of it, which is cool. If there was somebody, a little more intelligent there to tell him to scale it back just a tad, who never like maybe they put 700 on the bar for him instead, and they were like, let's get fucking 10. That would have been a little better for him instead of
two
the
or
crazy
something?
shit that he did. But fortunately, people like Dexter Jackson exist. Like he does mostly machine-based stuff, and generally it's full range of motion. I think recently he posted a video where I was like, God damn it! But he generally does a lot of things really well, and fortunately, he's been around. He's 50. What was he? 51 or something?
Yeah, 51, 52. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome. Competing in the Olympia, like people have to see that and think longevity in bodybuilding. Who do I think about? Dexter Jackson. Like, what did he do? Then you go back and look at some of his stuff, and it was like, oh wow, that's a lot of machines. That's a lot of like not deadlifting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what about your diet? Has anything changed? Like, just I don't know much about, but that's probably because like you're bigger and you can eat more food. You know, is your NEAT gone up, or is that anything?
Well, that and just like utilization and storage inside of the tissue is actually a little higher.
You're building more muscle, right? So you're gaining less fat as you would have previously. But sure. What about protein intake? Does that with with the general recommendations for like athletes or whatever, bodybuilders, does that change for enhanced bodybuilders? Can you utilize more?
This is a very good question, because people actually have it incorrect. They think when you take anabolics, you're training harder, you're tearing down your muscles more, and so you need more protein, or just there's anabolics, so you need more protein in general. But actually, protein utilization, because of the anabolics, goes up. And because protein utilization goes up, you could actually decrease your protein.
Yeah.
So my protein, my entire prep was like 205, 210 grams.
Which is what, like less than a gram per pound?
Less than a gram per pound.
Yeah, that's.
But toward the end, I would go to like a gram to 1.25 grams per pound just for hunger purposes. But yeah, protein utilization is way high with the anabolics.
Mm-hmm. I was actually reading something from Stu Phillips. There's a lot of research on protein, and trained lifters can basically, like you said, utilize more protein, or utilize it more easier than newbies or whatever. And it's just like that's just enhanced when you're using like tests.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah. And what about then? You mentioned like I saw photos when you competed in Ashford and you were on point, and you were like 24 or something like that. So crazy physique for that age. So what changed then for the peaking process? You mentioned at the Arnold, you kind of messed it up a little bit. Like obviously there's like compounds that make you hold water and stuff, but how did that change? What way did you usually like load your carbs? Did you front load, back load? How did you do it now?
So with natural bodybuilding, you tend to be able to keep sodium and water a little higher, and the blood fluid regulation. If you know what you're doing, generally you're able to store a lot more carbohydrates, and you see a lot less in the peaking process, and you see a lot less of the subcutaneous water retention, and there's a lot less recompartmentalization from day to day. So like the fluctuations aren't as rapid. But with pharmacology, there are literal certain compounds that make you store more sub-Q water. And if you're on those compounds and you reintroduce sodium, water, carbs, it's tough to know what's going to happen with those unless you know what the compounds are, which compounds do that, which compounds don't, which compounds help increase intramuscular storage. So I was trying to peak very similar to how I would have my clients peak for natural bodybuilding shows and how I peak for natural bodybuilding shows, which is basically it's like keeping sodium and water pretty high and increasing your carbohydrates closer to the show and going into the show. It's like very simple. I got some fucking crazy pictures of me as a natural bodybuilder during peak week. It's like a side chest with like in like a red tank under some crazy lighting in a gym. I had 10 grams of sodium and 3 gallons of water that day, and I just had the craziest fucking pump of all time. And I was tight as hell. If I were to do that now, 10 grams of sodium, I would look like a water balloon. Like people will see Mike's physique sometimes on the internet, even like smart people. I think Eric has gotten into this with him before. And they'll say, yeah, you're like 12 weeks out, 15 weeks out, 20 weeks out. And I don't think they understand because it's individualized too. Like he stores so much fucking water, like probably 20 pounds in a peak week easily. We could get that off of him. I had a client in the past, we took 25 pounds of water off of him. He got a DEXA at 4%. I said, man, the DEXA is broken. You're not 4%. This is, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, let's just peak. I had him consult with Broderick, Broderick showed me the peak. I was like, yeah, let's try it out. He did it. 25 pounds of water lost, looked like he had 4% body fat.
Well,
So like,
how do you lose
it's
that much
funny.
water? Do you like not drink any water and use sauna, or?
For me, I still had an increased period of water and sodium with like a less carbs. I didn't go zero carb. And then that's for the diuretic effect because I didn't take any diuretics or anything like that. And then I just cold turkeyed before weigh-ins, and 18 to 20 hours before weigh-ins, I didn't have any more water. And I got to weigh-ins at 206. Then I had to go sauna off a pound in the car, which was awful. And came back, and I gave myself a liter for the next day with a shit ton of carbs. So in natural bodybuilding, that would not be a thing. You would probably come in pretty flat if you did that because you need the sodium and water.
Yeah.
But because the gradient was already created and I was flushing out everything because it was super physiological increase in that water and sodium, the carbs kind of pulled a lot of that in because of the pharmacology. But with natural bodybuilding, it's unsure to me that occurs. So people will try that too. They'll like drop their water and they'll try to peak like an enhanced person, and they eat a bunch of carbs and they think like they spilled over or whatever it may be.
It's just flat.
But yeah, for most naturals, it's just like going into the show. Like have your water and sodium pretty consistent. Keep it high-ish. The morning of the show, try not to have too much, because usually as a natural bodybuilder, you wake up looking the tightest, right? And after that peaking process and the carbs go up, generally people either lose a couple pounds the first day from the cortisol reduction, or they just gain a couple pounds, but it's all glycogen and they look fucking amazing. So it's like, why mess with that at all in natural bodybuilding? It's just an enhanced, you have to sometimes, because a lot of these compounds, especially the ones that make people look puffier and fuller, they make you store subcutaneous water really bad.
Yeah, and why would you use those? Are the wet compounds like more androgenic? They help you build muscle better in the off season, or why would you just not use drier
Generally,
compounds?
they come with a lot more joint and connective tissue uh, as far as feeling good, just like having
Yeah.
water and things like that, or nutrients around the area. You just feel better on them. That's one reason. Oftentimes, people have really stringy looks to their physiques. They're like more square muscle bellies. They're not like genetically gifted. Black guys are like me, how we all have those big delts, like real round muscle bellies. So they appear to be more stringy. So a lot of those types of physiques will use what they're called 19 Nors. They'll use more of those, like you said, wet compounds to look fuller. That's one smart reason to use them. The reason that I believe most use them is because of the weight increase. You gain 20 pounds, but really only like a pound or two of that's muscle over the course of 10 weeks. And you think, oh, I'm the fucking man. But then you come off of those and you lose, 19 pounds of the 20 you gained. And it's like, what was the purpose? But a lot of people are addicted to the side effects.
Yeah, it's fine for like a gym bro, right? If you're just in the gym and you don't compete, you just want to get big
Exactly. You
and
see
lift.
20 pounds on your body weight and you're like, oh, yeah, I'm the man. Yeah.
Yeah. So what was your weight difference between when you competed naturally? Obviously, there's a couple of years in between, but what's the weight difference on stage?
My low weigh-in during prep at natural bodybuilding was like 179, maybe 178 and a half. I stepped on stage at my pro debut at like 187. I was 189 at weigh-ins the day before. So that was a 10-pound, glycogen load, which was decent. And
That's heavy for a natural bodybuilder.
yeah, it was potentially overdone a little bit. I think the first show I came in a little off. The second show I came in like 185, and that's when I won the Poseidon Classic. And I was definitely drier. So 185, my pro win. To my pro card, I was 208 to 210 on stage. I didn't weigh myself in the morning. I was just like, it's done. Like, I pulled my shirt up. I took some pictures. I was like, I'm dry as shit. Let's just get it done. I was at that point like just ready. You know what I mean? So probably like 210 on stage.
So like 25 pounds or so.
Yeah.
And
25 pounds over years.
what's your weight cutoff for the classic physique?
It was 205, and now it's 215 as a pro.
It's pretty
And
crazy, isn't
like,
it? It's like a jump.
yeah, nah, man. Honestly, like the shit that I had to do to make 205 this year, including dropping some stuff and losing potentially some muscle, it was crazy. It was
Yeah, it doesn't
wild.
make
Like
sense.
I could have been 215 on stage this year easily.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because how can you be competitive as a pro if you have to be 10 pounds under the weight limit? It's a bit silly, to be honest. Do you expect to come in at like 215 next time you compete? When do you plan to
Oh
compete?
yeah.
Is that next year?
Yeah, planned. I would love to qualify for the Olympia this coming year, 2021. And I have a plan mapped out for that. But I'm unsure, dude, some of these physiques are insane. And a lot of them get overlooked, I would say. And like the bigger pro shows, there are a lot of physiques that seem to get overlooked that I feel like are just so classic and beautiful. Just like a bunch of people from like Dallas, Texas, and Houston, Texas, and a bunch of guys that I've seen. But so I don't know how much of that in the IFBB is showing your face, and how much of that is like it's just actually not what they want.
Yeah.
But to me, I feel like I have really classic lines, really decent shot at going pretty far. And if I come in as lean as I was, slightly leaner, I think I'll do pretty well, at least in my head. So, if I can get top 5 at like my pro debut, I'll probably continue and try to do a point qualification for the Olympia. If that top 5 is like, like third place or something, then I probably have a pretty good shot at winning a pro show. And if you can win a pro show, then you could just qualify for the Olympia for that year, which would be ideal. That's what I would love to do. I don't have much time as far as putting on muscle. It's going to be like 12 to 15 weeks. And then I have like a 10 to 12 week prep. But with what we are planning on doing, because I've been on this, people don't know that, I've been on that. We haven't pushed the needle, so to speak, on the odometer, not literally. And it's about that time. So shit's going to get very interesting very fast.
But you still have that weight cap, right? You're going to have to be mindful of that you just don't.
12 weeks and 10 pounds of muscle.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of muscle in 12 weeks. So it's like I gotta. Yeah. Exactly.
That's pretty cool. And I think there was definitely some pros at the Olympia who've just basically did a ton of shows and didn't win any, and just so that's definitely or else you could go to like Europe and win a small show or something like that.
Yeah. There's one in Spain that's considered a small show that people sometimes go at the very end of the season and try to win. There's one in Mexico. I think the one in Canada is pretty big, the Toronto one. But yeah, I probably debut at Europa in Dallas.
And what's your current body weight now at the moment?
235.
Oh, so you've gained a bit of weight, but you're.
Yeah, but like I said, like I'm actually pretty lean right now. People don't understand like the role of anabolics, man. It's like when I was a natural, I would look at some of these guys and what they were saying on the internet. I'm like, man, that's dumb as shit. Like that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And then when you are in this shit for a while, you're like, huh, that's what they meant. Like I've seen guys go from classic physique, like 225 on stage, to saying, fuck it, I'm done with classic physique, because they were just like bone dry and they had to lose muscle, like I had to lose a little bit of muscle, to 250 on stage 2 weeks later.
Wow.
With the same conditioning. Like I don't think people understand what can happen when you're implementing.
Yeah, the guy, what's his name?
Who they are, what they're willing to fucking
Pearson.
do.
The guy Keon, is it Keon Pearson or
Keon?
This guy, he got huge, pretty fast. So did
too fast. Huge a little too fast.
You think so?
Absolutely. Yeah. That was not a good idea, especially psychologically.
Yeah. And George Peterson, right? He
Yep.
went up as well. I
I
don't
mean,
think
look
he
at that
got
guy. He's
used.
the
I
same
don't think so.
same fucking conditioning all year, but he's putting on like 15 pounds of stage weight.
Yeah, it's
Like
insane.
that's some farm use, man. That's like
So yeah, one thing like I could never wrap my head around was like you've got guys like Lee Priest saying that like they use very little stuff, but then you've got other guys who probably use a shit ton. Can you get the same? Can you achieve the same look? Obviously, like insertions of muscle bellies are going to be genetic, but can you kind of achieve the same muscle, the same amount of muscle by having good genetics plus a little bit of anabolics, or just a shit ton of anabolics?
yeah, that's like inter-individual, the genetic variants and stuff like that. But there are better ways to do it for most people, because there's also this thing called compound synergy, where they work better together. And there's a lot of things like that that people don't know. So they're just kind of like putting everything in their body that they can and doing a lot of it. Whenever people like that come to someone like Broderick literally lowers their shit and they look better each year. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of obviously genetics come into play. Like I said myself, being on basically nothing, and half the guys I compete against being on grams and peptides like GH, Slend, things like that. Like I've never touched yet, which is the needle pushing. So there are guys that do that could definitely be doing it better, and then there are guys who just have phenomenal genetics who actually don't take that much. Like I said, back to what I said earlier about people at least say things which are awesome, but in reality, I don't know about that. So to the Lee
Yeah,
Priest comment, in reality, I don't know about that.
yeah. Well, what do you think? That the gut that you often see are like massive open bodybuilders. Do you think that's like from anabolic use or just having a ton of food and lifting a shitload of weight and just growing it?
Stomach?
Yeah, like whatever they say, bubble gut or like
Probably a combination of all those things.
yeah,
Lots of
and
food. I think lots of food is probably the number one contribution to that.
yeah. So how much more food are you eating now than you were, say, at a similar body weight when you were like back in the day, if you were ever at a similar body weight?
Ooh. Yeah, my highest ever was 230, naturally, and I was like fat as shit. I never went back up to that. I think my peak mass weight after my pro card win, going into my pro prep was 215. It was pretty decent. Looked a little better. But if we compare like 210, like mid prep, like toward the end of prep, with 210 massing as a natural, that's probably similar.
Well,
Yeah,
is
which
it
is cool
is
as
it
fuck.
is it any easier though? Like, because you're still lean, right? So you still suffer or you still feel the effects of the diet. Is it any easier, or is it
It
just
depends
maybe a little more?
on it depends on what you do, what you take, and when your coach or yourself drops certain compounds, and if you're running like excessive fat burners, if you have no sort of stimulants into your regimen, and it's all inter-individual, obviously. But for me, this has been uh, significantly easier. I dieted on like 300 grams of carbs the entire time. My prep was 10 weeks, not even, because I deloaded a couple times and took a week maintenance. And my cardio is minimal. I went through natural bodybuilding preps where, man, I was on zero carbs for 4 fucking weeks because I just wanted to come in shape. And that's fucking hell. But at the same rate, that's with time frame and what I'm fine with preps. It was needed. I think 30-week preps are fucking stupid. 40-week preps are stupid. Never understood that shit unless somebody's like super over fat. So it's definitely easier to maintain tissue when you're prepping enhanced, and you can actually improve to an extent when you're prepping enhanced, depending on where you're at in your career. Like and depending on what you did in your off season. If somebody's like blasting a bunch of shit in their off season as well, and then they try to diet on the same stuff, obviously they'll lose some stuff, some tissue. But if you're like doing very minimal when you're gaining in your muscle phases, and you're adding in shit as you diet down, that's why you see those guys improve so well. Like you talked about, I think Juan, or who'd you say earlier? Was it Juan?
Yeah, Juan Morel.
He started his prep this year, I believe, at like 250, and
Yeah,
he
I
was
saw
like,
that.
I'm gonna step on stage at 260.
Yeah, it's insane to be like 10 pounds heavier and leaner. It's
There
like
you
the
go.
dream.
And
Yeah.
it's not even like it's like he was a true 15% body fat at 250.
He didn't look like a bodybuilder. Well, I mean, he didn't look like a pro IFU bodybuilder though before the
Yeah.
like on the
He was a
offseason.
true 15% body fat at 250.
Yeah.
And then on stage to whatever, 55, 60 at 4 fucking percent.
Yeah.
How does that happen, guys? I don't
Yeah.
know.
And so like obviously then it's probably it varies depending on like what you take and stuff. But you know, there's like general recommendations for like fat loss for natural bodybuilders and muscle gain. Like, you know, you don't want to go above like maybe 2% of your body weight. You just get pretty fat. How does that change with enhanced bodybuilding?
Oh man, you know, I'm still wrapping my head around a few concepts, but I generally have been making it relatively similar and just trusting thermodynamics. So even if my body weight is like kind of just like all over the fucking place that week, I just trust that my body weight plugged into these equations, these are the calories that I need, and if I do that, I'm losing this amount of fat per week. Whenever you think about anabolic drive, and fueling that process, you could potentially raise your calories a little bit, and that's why guys mostly diet on higher calories when they're enhanced, because not only are you losing fat, but you're also fueling the process of muscle growth because the anabolics have the anabolic drive. But then if you add in fat burners, it's like, okay, so I don't actually have to decrease here. I can just put this fat burner in. Like there's things that are really strong like TNP, and
Yeah, but that shit can kill you, right?
that's what they say, but actually, it's relatively safe if you're not an idiot. So, some people have like adverse reactions to it, like kind of like allergic reaction. It's fairly rare, but that can happen, and you could definitely kill yourself. You can overheat if you don't know what you're doing. I think a lot of people that killed themselves on that, like literally were trying to take 1,000 a day or like 1,500 a day when like 200 is high. Yeah.
Yeah. And a final question then, I guess I've heard before that like you can basically like people or commentators or whatever saying like he needs to make sure that he doesn't gain weight too fast or like gain muscle too fast. Is that possible? Like, is there a possibility of like you losing your shape or like some other negative effects of gaining weight too fast, or is it just down to health? Is that the way people say that?
Definitely health, big time. That's probably the number one thing. I think that you could potentially fuck your shape up with, like we talked about the belly, the stomach,
Yeah.
pushing that much food that soon with that much anabolic probably has some sort of effect on the waist becoming bigger, which overall look wise would quote unquote mess up your lines. Truly, I'm unsure what people think they mean by it. Like if they do mean ruin your lines as in like your muscles will look different, I don't think that's the case. Uh, if it is, I'm unsure of what mechanism
Yeah.
leads to that. That doesn't
Yeah,
make much sense
I
to me.
just assumed like that if you ate too much or gained way too fast, your obliques or something would get bigger as well.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just
yeah.
look. I mean, a lot of top pros don't actually have like I think Jay Cutler's waist was like 34 inches, which isn't huge, but it's not small by any means. Yeah,
He had a big one.
yeah.
And
But he was like 5-time Olympia or something. Yeah, I said, where can people find more about you? I know that you guys have just released a book, right? Your hypertrophy book that was being much anticipated, and you said you get it out, or Mike said you get it out before the end of the year, and you did.
Oh yeah, that was a process though. There were some hiccups at the end, and we ended up getting it done. But yeah, so renaissanceperiodization.com. I'm one of the Renaissance Periodization coaches. You can look at all of our products and the other coaches. Everybody has a PhD. They're all really smart people, fantastic colleagues. I'm very fortunate to be working with them. And so renaissanceperiodization.com, that's where the book is. That's where the male physique templates are. That's where you can get the diet app, yada, yada. And then I post on YouTube sometimes, Jared Feather. And then I post, I'm also on the Renaissance Periodization YouTube quite a bit with Mike training and talking about stuff. And then mostly just Instagram and email.
And I'll leave that in the show notes. What's your Instagram handle?
Just Jared_Feather. I didn't change it to Ifbb Pro. I just put that in my
Perfect.
description.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people do.
No.
You could have
Maybe I
like
should,
if you ever do a PhD, you could do like Dr. Jared Feather IFB Pro.
that would be an accolade I would probably change my name.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's. I'm sure there must be one. Like with all the bikini competitors and all, there has to be somebody who's done it.
Yeah, there's probably like a doctor or like a chiropractor, which
Yeah.
doctor. But
Anyway, dude, thanks so much for coming on and have a good new year.
yeah, dude, you as well. Thanks.